With release of Gower Dungeon 3 came the first boss, which is Carapath. And along with that, there was a whole week of free devs. So, for an Iron account, or even a main account, this will be very beneficial because the next 3 bosses of Gower Dungeon 3 that will be released, it's safe to assume that each one will have a week of free dev. And then possibly a 5th one, like how Gower Dungeon 1 has next, and Gower Dungeon 2 has Telos. Gower Dungeon 3 may have a boss like that. I mean, it's safe to assume that at least. But on screen right now, this is what I'll be going over. Hopefully, I get some drops. Now we've got Calfight Team for dual wield tier 90 Drygors. But I will need 2 styles for that, which I should be fairly good, because I'll try to go with like 4 or 5 people, so I can actually get kills a decent amount. As for the next one I will be doing is Rods. This one is pretty easy because I already have my God Banner for the little mini overload buff, and I have Armadillo along with Mechanized Chinchompas as a main hand weapon. The only issue is my offhand weapon is in tier 70 or tier 75, so yeah, that is a bit lacking. And with Rods, it gives me so many supplies for cooking, crafting, the Malevolent Energy for the future, Malevolent Armor if I choose to go for that approach instead of making Masterwork. And also with Rods, I have a chance on getting those tier 90 shields, which will be very good for magic and range, as a tier 90 rod shield is pretty much useless because you can easily smith the tier 90 version of that. As for the third boss I'll be trying to do is raids. This is actually very hard because you'll need 10 people or 9 other people. And I mean, I could do this outside of No Death Week where you actually have to pay for it, but I'm hoping as an Iron that people start hosting it daily or something for that week. So I will try my best to hopefully get like a Mazcap. If I get the tier 90 armor, the boots will be, they might be kind of good. I mean, I do have the tier 70 boots, so I'm not too sure about that. And lastly, I do plan to try a Raxor for the first time. I have been delaying this a little bit because I really don't want to do a Raxor without overloads, but with the God Banner buff, 30 minutes daily, I could try and see if I can do it. And also my gear is pretty low, it's only tier 70, so we will have to see if I can get kills that way or not. And then for those people that are main accounts, there's 3 additional bosses you can try with the penalty of no main deaths, and that would be number 1, Telos. Telos is a soloable boss, and it's pretty much easy till you get to 100% enrage. After 100% enrage, you unlock phase 5, which the fight gets so much harder because you'll have to get, I think, 6 or 8 golems on you, and they can deal a lot of damage. So it'll be the perfect time to learn that boss. The next one would have to be probably the worst boss ever, and that would be Solak. This is the worst thing to do as a learner, because right away on the start of the fight, everyone has to coordinate to those green pads. And then also the fight is pretty lengthy, it's about 8 or 9 minutes, and you will need to use resonance on tick a lot of times. So I mean, even getting the timing of that can take a couple hours, and it is quite frustrating. And then lastly, you want to do elite dungeons. This includes 1, 2, and 3. Elite Dungeon 2 is by far the easiest to do, although you will need 85 Herblore, the super anti-fire potions. For Elite Dungeon 1, The first boss, well actually all three bosses of ED1, they're beyond terrible. The first boss is the Sinking Guardian. It's not too bad as long as you kind of avoid the little water glass god. Now the second boss for that is Masuda. His spear is like no other spear in game. That's because it can hit like 4 or 5 tiles away. Compared to the normal, or scythe, it hits 2 tiles away, so yeah, he can smack you and you'll have to like pretty much run and kite him when he does his spec. Third boss from Elite Dungeon 1 is probably the worst one because there's so many mechanics and they can happen at the same time. So you'll have like a next shadow appearing under you where you'll have to move. You might get shot with a huge breath attack that can hit like a 4 or 6k if you aren't praying correctly. And then you also have little hands that spawn to you. I mean, that boss has so many mechanics that can be overwhelming right away. And then of course, Elite Dungeon 2 is pretty easy in my opinion. The only one that could be an issue would be probably the first one if you don't get the neutron star to spawn right away. In which case, that's gonna hit what? I think a 9,000 on you. And that's about it. The other two bosses are fairly simple as long as you use defensives like Devotion and Resistance for those free heals. Elite Dungeon 3, however, the first boss, if you do not have quick reflexes, he will kill you instantly pretty much. Because he'll go from one side and move his head all the way to the opposite side, then he'll retrace those steps. While you are in the attack path of it, you will get like 3 hits instantly. And you cannot out-eat it. You can if using Trim Masterwork, but you have to move with the boss still so you don't get continuously hit. Then you can't out-eating it. You're just staying in place. Second boss for ED3 is, I want to say, fairly easy, but the blob that's on the west, the NPC carrier, spawns so many skeletons that they do start to hurt as they do range you, and the boss can magic and range. So, by not praying correctly, they'll eat up a good amount of your food. As for the third boss in ED3, will be Ambassador. That one, I want to say, is pretty easy, but it is a lengthy fight and you do have to pay attention. You will need to go very defensive heavy. On the spinner rotation part, in case you get like 3 or 4 bombs, but in that case, I would just teleport out right away. You could do it with 3 bombs comfortably if you have Resonance and Devotion, Reflect instead of Devotion ready for the incoming damage, or Disruption Shield. That way it mitigates that 9,000 hit, because it's hard eating without using defenses. And then pretty much the final phase of Ambassador, he's pretty easy as long as you go clockwise following the hands, because those hands, they do heal them if you are not standing between Ambassador and the hands. And then that's it pretty much. That is pretty much all of the ideas or bosses you should try to attempt when the next 3 or possibly 4 more bosses from Tower Dungeon 3 are being released, as they will be a week of free death on release of each boss. And with that, thank you all so much for watching this little tips guide on how to kind of get into PVM without paying the 3, 4, or even like 5 mil death costs from accidentally misclicking or something, as it is very punishing. And enjoy the rest of your day.